So can you just talk about the learning? It sounds like there's been some evolution of those roles over time. And it sounds like one of the major things was in the early days, you talked about the document specialists, they were not communicating with the clients.
No.
The agent would continue to communicate with the client. So
Yeah.
the document specialist in that case would review the conditions, think about what's needed, but then they would ultimately go back to the agent and tell the agent, hey, here's the things that are needed on this file. And, try to get these as fast as possible.
Exactly.
The evolution sounds like we got to this loan processor role where the loan processor would actually take over communications after the conditional approval was issued.
Yeah.
Why was that the strategic shift that was chosen? And what do we think the lesson is there? And what have we learned since doing that?
Yeah, good question. I think we learned that it is possible, right? Clients, as long as there's a nice, smooth handover where everything is foreshadowed beautifully. You're very familiar with this analogy, Bekim, I know, because I've heard you say it, but this idea of a haunted house analogy really comes into play. So what I'm going to do next, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is I'm going to submit your application to the lender, and from there we'll get a commitment letter back. And from that point forward, you can be working with an amazing loan processor. Their name is so-and-so, and they're going to be with you every step of the way. Of course, I will as well, more so in the background though. If you need me at any point, you can reach out. But your loan processor is very, very capable, and they're document experts, and they're going to help get you broker complete. So for us to get that evolution to actually happen effectively, it was more than just writing some scripts for them. It was more than, kind of putting in a process, but it was also helping develop the people. So we run our operations team like a sales team. And ultimately, we don't want them to be order takers. We want them to be, order givers. We use personal branding like any good client-facing person should to build trust with the client. But we also teach them to use assumptive language, right? We teach them how to mirror the client. We teach them how to build rapport. We explain the importance of firm appointment setting and document deadlining. And it's not to trick the client to doing something they shouldn't do, but ultimately, we do know that completing a mortgage transaction is an adult activity. And adult activities are those things that you put on a to-do list that keep getting put off and put off and put off and put off. And obviously, when you work in the mortgage industry, when you put off all the things that you need to do on the way to close, what ends up happening is you have a really bad experience in the 11th hour. So our overall mission is to show our clients how much we care and to guide them through the process, with the least amount of friction as possible, I suppose.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about process orchestration. You talked about the importance of communication and foreshadowing. Couldn't agree more, for those who are unfamiliar with the haunted house analogy that we often throw around in our world. It's like, hey, a haunted house is only scary because it's dark and you don't know what's coming around the corner. But if they were to flip the lights on, wouldn't be that scary. And really flipping the lights on is just telling the client constantly what's coming next.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, what is the ultimate goal of the process, right? Is it speed? Is it certainty? What have you figured out when it comes to processing a mortgage? What matters most so that we can do the best job of it and get the highest reviews in return and the highest rates of referrals and clients coming back to us and things like that? What are you ultimately trying to achieve and why?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's both speed and certainty, because you can do things really, really quickly and make a bunch of mistakes or overpromise and underdeliver, and you provided a terrible experience. Certainty, of course, means that when I tell you something's going to happen, it does happen and it's predictable. We have an emphasis on both. One of the things that we found over the years, regardless of the submission date and the time from the submission date all the way to the closing date, whether it's the full 120 days out, if we can get our clients broker complete in 21 days or less, we have a higher pull through essentially. And there's more likelihood that mortgage is going to close. And ultimately that's the client's goal and that's our goal as well. So we have something we call our Blackjack deals, right? And our team's pushing towards that. That being said, there's the speed aspect of it, but also the certainty aspect in saying that, getting them to broker complete, that gives them that certainty. At that point, the deal's gone through pre-fund. They know they truly can get excited in waiting for their mortgage to close. But that's been a big push for us, and it's been very successful for our team.
Certainly. Yeah. The branding around Blackjack being that of 21 days is a beautiful thing.
Perfect.
It's perfect, right? And to speak to that a little bit more, because, I tracked it closely, obviously, and what we discovered through the data was that once the 21 days had passed, the likelihood of that mortgage closing actually started to go down.
Yeah.
Something around that period for clients, it just stood out, and that by then they expected to know for sure whether or not their mortgage was good to close, whether it was set to close a week from then or 2 months from that time, 3 weeks in, they're like, I'm done working on my mortgage.
Yep.
Now I need you to say that we're good to go and let's move on to the next step here, which is me sitting on my hands waiting to sign the final paperwork. If you can't give me that level of confidence by X date, I'm going to start wondering whether or not you're going to actually get this done for me. And that's a scary feeling, but you're back in the haunted house, right?
Yeah. I think when we started, we made our first goal. This is when we had, agents doing most of the outreach, and obviously agents' jobs are very, very busy, right? So you're expecting them to find new clients. But then when they were being asked to process their loan on the back end with the help of a document specialist, it's just too many plates to spin. And at that point, our percentage of deals that went broker complete within 21 days, again, regardless of submission date and funding date, it was around 60%. And that's where we kind of lived. But since we've evolved our model and had our loan processors handle that part and allowed the agent to focus solely on new business, this month we're at over 80% right now. And it's been consistent 13 months in a row that they've gone beyond their goal, which was 66% at first. And we've raised our goal, obviously, to 70 because, if you keep hitting the goal, you got to raise the goal. So they've continued to meet the challenge. And I will shout out, if he's out there listening, our leader for this team, Peter Santeris, with the help of Kyle Dionne, who's the team captain. They've done such an amazing job championing this message and leading from the front.